Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer, angel therapy practitioner, Reiki master, and empowerment coach. And I'm here today with your weekly. I can't really decide what I want to call these because we look at the transits and then I get advice from the angels on how to traverse those transits. So I've been calling them angel scopes. I'm just not sure if that's resonating with the crowd, but this is what we're doing here. So welcome, welcome, welcome. For the purposes of clarity, these readings are based on whole sign Western astrology. So you're going to want to look at your rising sign, your moon, I think is super important, then your sun. And if you have a stellium of planets, that's 3 or more personal planets in one sign or house, I would look at that as well because that's a real focus. And we've got a lot going on in the stars. Welcome, CC Pups. Welcome, Stephen. Welcome, Small Wildflowers. It's good to see you. Welcome to everybody else in the room. We're in the middle of eclipse season, so that's the first thing coming up. And we had our eclipse in Scorpio on the new moon. And early next week on the 8th, we're going to have our full moon lunar eclipse in Taurus. So many pivotal things are going on right now. I was listening to Vic Dakara, and he did a whole series. He's a Vedic astrologer. He did a whole series on the nodal structures. And one of the things that captured my attention was he talked about the Taurus Scorpio nodal axis being the spiritual, the mystical versus the material. And I thought that was super interesting because we have the North and South node stationing for some reason. I don't know exactly how the nodes roll because they think they always go backwards, but they're at 13 degrees for a very, very long time. Now, today we have Mars. 13th degree is the Aries degree. That's why this is so important to me. It's also a critical degree. It indicates there is some sort of extra challenge about the situation. Now, when I think about the degrees, those first 12 are kind of the novice degrees. It's when the soul is first experiencing the energies of that house or sign. And by the time we get into the 13 to the 24th degree, this is sort of where you're going into what I think of as spiritual school, mastery of the practicing of the techniques, practicing of the concepts, putting them into the practical physical experience. And then when we get to those last degrees between 25 and 29, we're looking at mastering those experiences. So here we're seeing the nodal structure holding at 13 degrees until from now, I believe it's right now until December 15th. That is a very, very long time. So here we are at that Aries degree, and the 13th degree is a critical degree. So karmically, we all are experiencing a challenge of some kind. And I believe that is about our behavior, about looking at our resentments, looking at the challenging side of what Aries represents. Because we know Mars is going retrograde today, and it's going to spend until January, retrograding through Mercury, through Gemini, ruled by Mercury, our thoughts, right? And how we perceive things. And then it's going to move forward and influence until March, this whole Mars idea. Now, we also have the square to Neptune that Mars is hovering around for quite some time. I'm bringing up all these ideas because there is something going on that is asking us to be super brave, to be courageous, to be accountable, to own where we're holding our resentments, where we're holding old patterns of thought that aren't serving us, where we are within our verbiage doing the yeah, but. So everything's great, but this is missing. Everything's okay, but if this was happening, this would be better, or this would be more favorable. And I feel like this is why this is the nodal structure being at a critical degree, is having discernment of thought, is starting to practice the idea that as I put an intention out to the universe, it isn't always about my particular action, but holding that alignment to that thought. I have the South Node right on my Mercury in Scorpio at 13 degrees. Not only have I felt like I don't remember things lately, or things are coming out of my mouth, not the way I'm thinking them, I'm also getting this very strong feeling to slow down my speech. What is my intention? I talked a few weeks ago, maybe it was even last week, I think it was 2 weeks ago, about maybe not doing Sunday mornings. And was it benefiting you? And in that contemplation and in getting real with myself, what's my intention? And no offense to you guys that come every Sunday, but is my intention to please this group right now, or is my intention to offer information, and regardless of how it lands on other people, and just put it out there for the sake of having it there? And that's my true intention. So here we see the nodal structure at 13 degrees and the South Node in Scorpio asking me to dig deeper into my spiritual beliefs, into the quote unquote occult, into the laws of attraction, the divine laws of the universe, the things of ceremony. And am I allowing myself the privilege of discerning between what my physical human body wants in the way of validation and what I want to be the legacy of what I leave on this planet? And while I want to leave a legacy of selfless service, I never wanted to have a ring of martyrdom. I never wanted to have a ring of depletion. I wanted to feel uplifting. So I really kind of had to walk back and look into what are my motivations. And I think that's what's going on right now. I think that's the Mars retrograde. I think that's going back through Gemini, really thinking like, am I used to warring with these people? Am I used to fighting? Am I used to feeling resentful? Am I used to feeling angry? Is how I'm showing up depicting what I want to experience in this world? Or am I showing up in a way that is inadvertently a habit of perception, a habit of thinking, a habit of speaking, a habit of how I'm moving within my everyday activities? There is this feeling with the North Node being in Taurus at 13 degrees. It's like, I feel like I want to be brave enough to put the idea of my values, of thoughts or things into the 3D world in a way that I can actually experience it as a tangible thing on this planet. And therefore, then when I become challenged by something, rather than feeling like I'm walking up against a brick wall or I'm hitting my head against the wall, I'm seeing and looking for a deeper wisdom of how this challenge is actually going to empower me. And that's why I think the square to Neptune that runs as a big theme throughout this whole Mars retrograde is important, because it is offering us an opportunity to look where we've escaped, where we have used, control, where we've used drugs, where we use alcohol, food, emotional addiction, wherever we have given up our power or gone into a place of less than, and allow us to sit in a place of, I am more than I know that I am in this physical body. That's why I think the nodal structure being at 13 degrees right now is so important. And when I was doing my own personal reflection, I really saw myself going into old habits of thought that I'm not sure they're true. They're just old habits of thought. And so I felt like, rather than the South Node trying to make me feel like I'm losing my mind, maybe it's trying to help me to lose some of the portions of my mind that no longer serve me, and to start to tell a deeper story about how those experiences actually empowered me and propelled me and inspired me. Sometimes being pissed off is very inspirational. You're like, I'm not doing that. The other thing that I wanted to say that I think is kind of interesting this week is we have the moon going to be in Aries at the end of the week, on the 5th, right up against Chiron. And at the same time, the sun and the South Node will both be at 13 degrees. I think that's going to be a very emotional day. And we're walking into the next eclipse, which is in Taurus. And that's going to be a very special day, because it's not only the moon's not only directly related to that, there's a lot of emotion attached to, Uranus and the moon being together. That could be very watery and very floody and very electric, lightning. A lot of stuff could be going on. It's also an election day in the United States. So I think that this is important too, because we're seeing this idea of, we've got Mercury, the Sun, Venus, and the South Node in Scorpio. I feel like this is a real review. Where have we given up our power? Where have we deferred through our fears or through things that we hide from ourselves? I'm afraid to be powerful. I'm afraid to be responsible, because if I'm responsible for the good things, am I responsible for the bad things? Am I responsible for the things that I think are distasteful? And I think that when we start to seek a deeper wisdom, then we don't get caught up in judgment and blame. We just start to look at the bones of something and say, okay, that's antiquated. That's not working for me. And now I get to move in this direction. So that's what I think is going on. I have done separate videos for a lot of the things going on. I did one for the Mars retrograde. I did one in general, because I do think that there's aspects to the United States that are going to be pretty pivotal in how we move forward. And then I did one for you all with your by your rising signs. So check those out. Do we have Lucy in a new, under a new name? Is it Mimboe? Is that Lucy now? What's going on? Well, I like that. Good morning, Jay Sean. Good morning. Mimboe, is that Lucy? Yes. Okay, on your phone. Okay. All right, terrific. Okay, good. Well, welcome everybody. I'm going to go into the readings right now. But before I do, I do want to let you know I'm going to be doing a November general November forecast. These next few months are super, super powerful in the sense of, we're going to see a lot of divine disruption. We're going to see a lot of people who are walking on the planet thinking that, this is all there is, reacting in ways that their frustration over the last few years, their station in life, whatever they're walking through, is going to feel exasperated and exposed. So I want to offer it this way, because I feel like being mindful is going to be, it's not going to change potential emotional reaction, but it could have you be more aware of how you're processing that. The other day I was walking, I walk the same path all the time, and I was crossing the highway, and I saw this older woman. Every other car had stopped. There was a red light. I saw this older woman. She didn't look like she was slowing down. And I stopped in the middle of the street, and I'm really glad I did, because she plowed right through that red light. She never saw it. And had I continued my path, she would have plowed into me, unlucky. My point is, this is Mars and Gemini. And I could have gotten really mad and, like, oh my God, look, this happens all the time. But I started to think about the stars. I started to think about the information I had, and then putting myself in a place of intention to be aware of this, to create a bubble of safety and security and protection. All right. Let's start with our Scorpios. I'm going to do, for those of you that may have not been here in a while or that are new to the show, I'm going to start with the birthday month of the sign, and then I work my way around the zodiac. Again, we're doing whole sign Western astrology. While I do talk about the degrees, I really apply that when I'm doing a personal reading, either a natal chart, natal and transits, a synergy chart, or a past life chart. And if you'd like to book one of those, you can. And be sure to like and subscribe. Good morning, Beth. All right, let's look and see. Scorpio, what is our tarot card for the week? Now, I want to offer this too, because I expect this week to feel very emotional. I expect this week to feel sort of random, like old things coming up that we didn't really expect, thought I'd been there, thought I'd done that, and now it's jumping up. One of the other things I want to say is that I have been in my own wobble, and I've been using a couple affirmations to kind of present a general thought, because when I go into specifics or detail, I find myself feeling lack, or feeling fear, or feeling worry. So everything is always working out for me. I align to, I attract, and I allow for all my bounty and all the things I want to experience in a higher vibration into my life now. You might want to start to use that. When your mind starts to feel like it's going around in a circle and you're feeling all this anger, or you walk into work this week and everybody's like, you feel like the tension, you could cut it with a knife. A lot of things are going to bubble up. So as we allow that to sort of bubble around us instead of on top of us. Okay, Scorpio. Our first tarot card is the Seven of Cups. This is a challenging energy because there's good and bad to everything, and there's a sense of confusion. This guy feels like he's in the dark. He's not quite what to do. And when we talk about the cups, we're talking about emotion. We're talking about intuition. We're talking about receiving. And I say a feminine energy because it's a receptive energy. So I think that if we think about the combination of things, we just had this Scorpio new moon. It was an eclipse. This is a 6-month influence. You may not be seeing evidence right now of what you want to experience or a shift in things, but you've got to think, I've got Mercury, the Sun, Venus, and the South Node all in my sign right now. That's technically a stellium, especially with Venus, the Sun, and Mercury, because they're 3 personal planets. So what is my self-worth right now? What am I doing in the way? Am I only looking at what I can see in my material world, or what I know that someone can help me with, versus what my ability to create is, or what my ability to go into a deeper knowing? Scorpio, it's an interesting sign to me because it rules billionaires. And part of the reason I think it rules billionaires is because somewhere the soul has stepped into a integration of the physical and the metaphysical. And in doing so, they understand that thoughts are things. And so when someone is amassing something, we tend to see them, when they are successful in the material world, focused on solution versus a problem. So here, I think this is about focusing on how it feels when a solution has been presented, rather than the duality, a win-lose. I oftentimes focus on the cup that has the victory wreath in the skull, because it so beautifully depicts that in war, in order to be a victor, something must die. And this is the human experience. There's always contrast. So now, during this moment of contrast, when I am unsure of what's happening in the physical, that's when I go into a more metaphysical state. Everything's always working out for me. I am willing to be and allow myself to be a powerful co-creator in this life. All right, let's see what our angels have to say this week. Hi, DJ. Good to see you. Okay. Our first angel for Scorpio is Vanessa. The second is Omega. The third is Bridget. And the final is Rochelle. The structure of the human experience has so often been, I don't care how you feel, there's things to produce. If we think back in like the pioneer days and the seasons and the fact that there was not electricity, so time was very important. Getting your structure built, getting your food, done within the time, within the season, there became this momentum of disregarding the emotional body. Okay. And I think that's the true revolution right now. I think that is where we're going to start. And this emotional body is not about the negative side of the emotional body. It's about acknowledging that the emotional body is where we begin our manifestations on this earth. So as Scorpio gives themselves an opportunity to really dig into the metaphysical side of yourself, just let's take the money aspect out of it, although that could be part of it. But I want to go to the idea that it rules the occult. We have this on the 8th is when we're going to have this next eclipse, full moon. It's going to be in Taurus, and it's going to bring the culmination of a cycle. And I think part of that cycle is about whether you have faith and fear in your ability to create. Here we see the earth fairy, physical groundings. This is physical health. And there's Vanessa about faith, about are you making your decisions based on faith or fear? And here we go back to this confusion, because you will only be able to see it through your physical, see what you want to experience, to feel your empowerment, to feel a shift in your life moving in the right direction from your heart chakra. And as you start to allow for the broadness of that thought, so you're like, okay, everything's always working out for me. The universe is working out in ways that I can't even begin to imagine right now. And then allowing for the signs and the omens in the smallest of ways. I found $2 on the ground the other day. And I was like, $2. Okay, so maybe that's not a lot of money, but it did feel like a sign. 2 is cooperative. 2 is working in unison. 2 is creating cooperation and complementing and supporting in some way. So maybe this is what the universe is telling me, because for my Scorpios, here's victory and joy. And the victory and joy comes from your being able to identify where the ego has gotten in your way. It's a little challenging sometimes with the fixed signs, because there's a part of you, and having my Mercury in Scorpio, I'm very aware of this, because nobody can tell me what to do with my mind. You can't convince me that I don't know what I know unless you present a very logical and rational and higher vibrational choice. So I think this is an opportunity for Scorpio to actually start to anchor in, to use this South Node to be egoless about what you can see, to be egoless about, you're having to work hard to make something happen. Are you aligned to your own success? Because this is Bridget saying, look deeper, because you may be thinking, I'm not working hard enough. Why aren't people coming to me? Why aren't they booking? I need to do this. I need to do that. And if you dig deeper, you'll see that's all based on fear. And how will you be victorious? Be doing something joyful. I in my own practice, I rarely give discounts. Occasionally somebody will ask me, oh, it's my birthday, and I will, but for the most part, I don't. And the reason I don't is because it feels like lack. So here, Scorpio, as you honor and follow the guidance of your heart, prosperity is coming to you. And it's coming because you're grounding your faith into the material world. And you're starting to realize that unknowing energy, being in this, setting an intention, and then sort of understanding that every thought is 2 thoughts. Every thought is like first the inspired thought, and then how will I get there, or the lack thereof it. So now you start to understand, because this is a fire sign. And, Mars actually rules Aries, and Mars co-ruled Scorpio. So we have this fire element to the Scorpio dynamic. We have to remember that, Pluto wasn't discovered until 1977. So Pluto's only like 40 some odd years old. And for all those other years, Mars was ruling Scorpio. So there is something about trusting an inner knowing, allowing an intuition to create the spark of passion and the spark of I want to say creativity, but the creativity isn't about painting. It's about being like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad I didn't take action on what I was thinking, because when I sat back for a minute, the universe showed me something I could not have imagined. And then I walked through that door. Okay. Let's go on to our Sagittarius, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. Happy birthday for all my Scorpios, by the way. I didn't say that. Did it happen last night? Wow. I've had a few funny things happen. Like, I've really been, because, obviously we do this work and we see these retrogrades happen all the time. And I'm really acutely aware, like right now with Mars, I'm thinking, okay, so as Mars goes retrograde in Gemini, this makes me reflect on, does my anger and frustration actually ever move my story forward? Does anybody ever respond when I start to bully them or get tough or rough with them? They don't. They do the opposite. So I've had this whole thing with the maintenance people, right? I've told you about that over the weeks. My shades have been broken for 2 months. They're fairly new. I had a little issue with the guy when he put them first in, and I made an intention to just surrender. You know what? Whatever he does, I'm chill. And sure enough, not only did he first time, he blew off the first appointment. Normally that would have triggered me, but I was aware. And then this week he came in and he installed the new blinds, and they are an upgraded version of what I had before. They work better. They're more efficient in many ways. This is the gift of the universe. Okay, this is what I'm trying to tell you. Sometimes, with Mars going retrograde today, we're going to start to think back on all the things that challenge us, all the things that have kind of pissed us off. And now we really get to think, how do I show up in relation to that? Because how I show up is my co-creation. And when I turned away from it, things started to happen effortlessly. When I started to think, how can I inspire someone to help me versus being pissed off at them? And there's a lot of pissed off energy right now, you guys. All right, Sagittarius, your tarot card is the Seven of Swords. This is definitely a card of being a bit of a loner. It's taking what you can carry and moving away from the herd. And thank you. I'm sorry, Small. I said Sagittarius like 5 minutes ago. I'm so bad with that. But I want to offer it this way, because Sagittarius is a mutable sign. Sagittarius is thinks the big picture. Who am I? What am I? What is the meaning of life? And I feel like this Seven of Swords right now is playing to the idea of being an air sign, playing to the idea of my thoughts. And you know what? I think maybe there are some thoughts you can leave behind. Maybe there are things that you've learned. When I was a girl, church was very important to my family. We'd go every Sunday. And, the idea that God would pick my life for me, and then me thinking I'm a good person and God picking a really crappy, what I thought was a crappy childhood, made me angry. Okay. So as I've gotten older, I've left behind the idea that God picked my life for me. I think maybe I picked my life for me. So now I'm taking what my beliefs are and I'm moving away from the crowd. I'm actually going to I'll give myself permission to let my individuality, how I process things, move me forward. Because I think that's part of what's going on with the world at large. It's not about anymore, do you agree or disagree with me, but are you open and willing to let me have my viewpoint of things? And that's where I think Sagittarius has an opportunity. Let's see where we're going with that this week. Because I think this week is going to bring some stuff up as we head towards this full moon eclipse. I actually, I can't, when I walk around and I see how youth is, I don't really compare my life to like, would I want to be a teenager with a phone like this, as much as I think back on how unhappy and how much angst I had and how insecure I was. And would I trade my wrinkles for that youth again? And I don't think so. I got to tell you, in the long run, I think I'm just going to enjoy being older and less cuckoo up here. Okay, Sagittarius. Our first angel is Merlina. The second is Ariel. The third is Daniel. And the final is Shanti. Yes, seasoned. I like to think of it as a seasoned energy on the planet versus old. Although we're going to start rewriting. Old is going to be revered again, known as the wise one. Exactly. Merlina is being joined by the letting go card. Ariel's being joined by the frog. Daniel's being joined by the restriction card. And the novice is joining Shanti. I really think, Sagittarius, this is for you. It's about philosophical beliefs. It's about how you roll in your life. It's about giving yourself permission to evolve from a place that is away from the average person. As the last few years, going into churches and going into organized places where people worship, there's like a weird feeling for me, because I really enjoy the idea of worship and the idea of focused thought and honoring that thought through prayer, through ritual. And at the same time, there's a real resistant energy for me to think that I'm giving up my power to something, but rather working in cooperation with it. So Sagittarius, I think these are your new beliefs. I think you're starting to really evolve into a very powerful way that is against the grain. And in doing so, I think it may present a bit of confusion in the beginning, but you know what the letting go card is. It's moving away from fear and trusting a deeper knowing and in being empowered by that. And here we see psychic and spiritual experiences changing the way you view yourself and the world, and literally feeling a cleanup. And I want to offer it this way because, my mind is branded with my experiences. There's no removing them. There's no releasing them. Yes, I am a fixed Taurus moon. So there could be that participating in it. But with that characteristic in my makeup, how am I allowing myself to feel peaceful? It's now an opportunity to decide if my history is here, or if it's almost like, I feel like the restriction card is about a pause. It's about Saturn. And Daniel, while it's the angel of marriage, I think this has to do with partnerships that I've had, that I love, that I revere, that I want to continue, but I'm starting to think different than other people. And is it okay for me to do that? And I believe it is. And I believe that we see the unstable new beginning in the novice, and we see Shanti. The novice is skill without practice. I think the skill without practice comes from the idea that you're starting to really pay attention to your thoughts or things and where your focused thought creates. And you've been playing with this idea. And as you start to engage yourself into the more higher vibrational thoughts that the universe is working for you, you're starting to bring some of those experiences into the world, but you're still in the wobble of here and there, which is why I think the Seven of Swords is coming, because in some ways, you're looking back at what was while you're trying to move forward. And so I feel like this is being gentle with yourself as you start to realign to a new level of creation, a new level of perception within your life. And I feel like it feels kind of, it feels a little bit like a double-edged sword, because some people will not understand the way you try to explain things. And I feel like this isn't about explaining it to them. It's just about letting them experience you walk through the world with this new perception, this new philosophical way of thinking. Okay, let's go on to my fave, Capricorn. Love me, my goats. Okay. Pluto hovering at 26 degrees, Capricorn. God bless Pluto. Okay, so this is what I want to say too, because if you are a late degree Capricorn, I really want to emphasize that heart in the middle of Pluto. I think about these supposed malefic planets, and what I have surmised is that they literally destroy the human perception of how it should be, which makes us feel like there is a death. And if you think about Capricorn and you think about the idea that Capricorn is a builder, Capricorn rules government and authority and representing the structure of the earthly physical experience. But as we rewrite that structure to empower the people, not just authority, there's a certain amount of destruction that happens. And that's where I think people get scared. So let's see your tarot card. The Two of Cups, Capricorn. This is beautiful because this is a relationship card. And I want to offer this because we'll see if this is actually about intimate relationships or coming into cooperation with the things that make your heart feel loved. I can't help but see that lion with the angel wings above everything. The lion representing Leo, representing personal pleasure, personal expression, this idea of coming together that, one of the challenges the human has is that while we have these great and inspired ideas and things that get us excited, when we're excited, we tend to look outside ourselves for other humans to validate that excitement, that idea, that initial thought of what I want to do something. And inadvertently, oftentimes the other human will be like, well, how are you going to do that? And they end up throwing a blanket on things. So there could be this idea that Capricorn is coming into a heart chakra that is not engaging others, but rather paying attention to what's important to me. And then I see this like medical symbol underneath the lion that makes me feel like there's a healing going on here. Your moon it has Pluto over your moon right now, Lucy? Because this would really tell me that it's really important to come from your heart. And I would actually implement that into my meditations And I would start to talk to Pluto as my friend, because I really don't think Pluto is here to be malefic. Oh, 10 degrees. Okay, well, good. So that's over with. It's a Cappy degree. That's right. It is a Cappy degree. Okay, so look at Capricorn. Our first angel is Azure. The second is Athena. The third is Grace and Antoinette. And the final is Layla. Capricorn, Azure is being joined by the Trust card. Athena's being joined by the Eagle. Grace and Antoinette is being joined by the Mystery card, and Layla's being joined by the Focus card. Okay, so I absolutely think that this is more about, I don't think this is about intimate relationships, unless Capricorn is wanting to create that, experience that, nurture that. But I do think that this is coming into cooperation with the two sides of Capricorn, the one that wants to be seen as a leader, and yet a leader from love, allowing yourself to transform the idea that everything is about duty and obligation. But as you allow your own wants and desires to be as important as what you are obliged to and what you're dutiful to, then you represent for other people. Because Azure says your desired outcome will happen in the near future. Have patience and faith and don't try to force it. And the Trust card is a 47, which reduces down to an 11, which reduces down to the master number of thought and the Aquarian degree. Liberation, thinking in unique, innovative ways, going where no man has gone before, and not having to know what the road is, but being willing to take it one step at a time. Because Athena is saying it's safe for you to lovingly assert yourself into this new sense of spirituality that creates from a different place. And that's creating from joy and excitement versus creating from duty and obligation, and allowing yourself the privilege of, sometimes when we experience a change, even though the change, we're kind of like, we'll complain, oh, I hate my job. And then something changes within the job. And rather than celebrating the change, offering a new opportunity that's more exciting, we tend to go back and think about being scared and, oh no, how will I pay my bills? And frankly, Capricorn can do that pretty easily. So as you walk through this, the angels are saying, have compassion for your new choices. Really start to have compassion for the idea that you're coming into a whole new vibration where your discipline and your duty are aligned to something that's important to you from an emotional and a passionate place, which makes you a tremendously great leader. Because now is a time to focus on your desires, to focus on the new beginning. I've noticed recently, I see things on the news. And I go back and I either try to look up the celebrities chart or look up dynamics to see how did that play? How is that reflected in the stars? And I've seen a lot of people recently who have a Pluto influence, and most people are shaking in their boots with Pluto. And these people, their lives are changing in beautiful ways. They're getting married, they're getting pregnant, they're seeing the realization of their dreams in the material world. So Capricorn, coming into cooperation, celebration, joy in a way that is, I don't need to see every brick as I build my castle. I know that as I build my castle, everything is coming into alignment. And my job is to focus on the outcome of how it feels once it's achieved. I feel at ease. I feel flow with the universe. I trust the ebb and the flow. When there's an ebb, when there's a pause, when appears to be a stutter, does it mean that everything is going directly downhill at 100 million miles an hour? No, it doesn't. It's an opportunity to have perception, to step back. So there's the mastery of your, Stephen, if you have a 26-degree moon, okay, so you say it's in the decan of Sagittarius, but I also see that 26 degrees as a Venusian degree. And I see it in Leo. Venus and Leo feel very good to me. And this is about you being able to express yourself and what you love in a way that you build and you make money, and it builds your self-esteem. Okay. All right, let's go on to our Aquariuses. Rising moon, sun, and stelliums. We have the king of thought. And, I always sort of laugh a little bit here because, this guy looks so stern, and yet we see butterflies all over his throne. And if you look at it, we'll see that very top butterfly has 2 crescent moons around it. So there's somewhere where there's an opportunity for Aquarius to become, to evolve within your thoughts. And I want to say it this way, because evolving within your thoughts is one of the things about Aquarius is because you rule like humanity, you rule the bigger concepts. It's very Sagittarian in some ways. It's not about the little details. It's about the big things. How do we make the world a better place? What do I mean? What is my participation in the world? How can I, innovate things to make the world or space a better place? So to me, because I think about space travel, I think about innovation, I think about technology, I think about the World Wide Web. And I also think about my hopes and my dreams when I think about Aquarius. So I think that there's something about some sort of mastery of the heart and of the mind. And, if you think about, I think that Aquarius rules science. So anything you're endeavoring scientifically, you're hypothesizing, you're experimenting with, we take that into the 11th and into the 12th house. And I feel like there's an opportunity to play with that, to find balance within those two things. Let's see where we're focusing. Thank you, Stephen. Interesting, in my chart, I have my moon opposing Mercury. And I think that's kind of funny because it is this whole kind of push-pull between my mind and my emotions and what I intuit versus how my community sees me. There's so many things about Mercury and Gemini. There's so many layers to what it could mean that's why I think it's so important to pay attention to the degrees and to get further and further detail. Because when I think about Mercury for me personally in Scorpio at the 13th degree, and then seeing my Neptune at the 6th degree of Scorpio, I definitely think I'm here to help support and harness our thoughts, our things. And as we harness our thoughts in a way that actually feels selfish maybe initially, but then serves a bigger picture, we're going to really enjoy this planet and enjoy the roller coaster ride. All right, Aquarius, our first angel is Crystal. The second is Uriel. The third is Daniel. And the final is Archangel Gabriel. Okay, Crystal is being joined by the novice. Archangel Uriel's being joined by the birth and the rebirth card. Daniel's being joined by the water fairy. And Archangel Gabriel's being joined by the hawk. We know Saturn has turned direct in Aquarius. Many of you who are, Leos, and any fixed sign is going to feel either a square opposition or a conjunction to Saturn. It's not an easy. I literally, as I've gotten more into it, I can feel the change of the signs within my body. Yesterday, I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden I started to get really nervous, and I went to my phone and I saw that the moon was void of course. And I thought, how can I be so in tune to these planets that are hundreds of millions of miles away? There's a feeling of oneness going on here. So I want to offer it this way, Aquarius, because to me, when I'm looking at that king, there's a mastery of thought. What are you? You're ruled by the higher octave of Mercury. You're ruled by innovative thought, revolutionary thought, almost appears rebellious in some ways. And I believe that this is an opportunity for you to have faith and hope, because there's a push-pull. Saturn is pulling through your sign, your co-ruler, and it's saying, do it the old way. I don't care. Saturn is a challenge. We know it's depressing and it's restrictive and it's limiting. And yet at the same time, it's co-ruling a sign and with a planet that is electric and is vibrant and is pulsating with new ideas. So somewhere there's got to be cooperation. And I think that this is what's going on here. It's like not villainizing the one energy, but if for some reason transiting Saturn is hitting Aquarius in a way that feels a little bit hard right now, maybe this is an opportunity for you to go in here rather than in here. And that's why we have the unstable new beginning. We have Archangel Uriel here with the birth and the rebirth card. Your anger and your frustration is blocking you straight up. We don't realize it. We think we have reasons to be angry and frustrated. Look, this isn't working. Look, the money isn't coming in, da, 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 da. But that concentrated thought does not serve our end goal. And I think that's the true revolution. I think that's the true square between Saturn and Uranus that's been going on for the last 4 years, rewriting the history of how we're doing things and starting to pay attention to a much bigger picture of the emotional and the intuitive and how strong that is to create, because then we seek wisdom. The angels here are really asking Aquarius to look at things rather than from a historic place where you've been before. And Saturn rules your history. It's going to rule the old story. And now, does that old story work for me? And not because it was a fun story, but because I've evolved past it, because that doesn't pulse me anymore. Because I know when I walk through that again, I'm going to come back up again. Because I really believe here we see Archangel Gabriel representing communication, and we see the hawk representing a new perception and signs and omens from the universe that is opening up a bigger picture of things, meaning trusting from an intuitive place, an inner knowing. It looks like everything's falling apart, but maybe things are all coming together. I think this is what's going on in our personal lives, in our communities, and then on a world stage. So, as you connect to that, and again, allow yourself sort of this transformation, because I really want to say that Aquarius by nature is an Upachaya house. It rules reward over time. That's kind of the Saturn influence. So as you consider the crystal saying have faith and hope there's more on the horizon, is you trusting a deeper picture of what you feel versus what you see. I started to think the other day that I was worried because I wasn't worried. And I thought that's kind of a funny thing to worry about, because there is a deeper part of me that when I look around right now and I'm feeling such a slowdown, I'm feeling such I'm not enjoying it. It feels very much like I'm walking through my life with cement shoes on. And yet at the same time, there must be a reason why I'm being asked to slow down, to perceive things from maybe even the most subtle, slightest difference that I didn't see before. All right. Let's go on to our Pisces. Yeah, it's a weird thing because, anyone else that looked into my life, they'd be like, girl, you should be like planning your shopping cart right now. And that's where I do want to push the outside crowd away and say, don't lump me into your vibration. Okay, Pisces, here's an assessment. This is the 7 of Pentacles. It's where I'm looking at what I've created and I'm starting to really decide if I'm going to move forward or I'm going to change directions, if I'm going to harvest what I want or allow it to further evolve and grow before I dig in. Now, I want to offer this because we are seeing a square between Neptune retrograde and Mars retrograde. And this square, there's a couple things. There could be, obviously, with Neptune, we see illusion, we see, a feeling of erosion. But again, I'm always connecting that erosion to the way I perceive it from the physical, from the human. The human says, oh, this is keeping me safe. I don't like it, but it's keeping me safe. This job that I go to every day that I hate as I stack the fruits and the vegetables. And yet is that really serving me? Because I feel like Neptune is calling us forth to go to a more spiritual place. If I focus on the idea that the universe opens up opportunities for me, my new mantra, I might have said it earlier in the broadcast. Again, I've got the South Node on my Mercury, so I'm not remembering everything coming out of my mouth, but I align to, I attract, and I allow for the greatest and biggest parts of myself to be experienced in the physical. It's not dictating whether it's my love life, whether it's my professional life, whether it's my family life. It is an all-encompassing mantra that I would love to see you all implement for yourselves moving forward, because your alignment to your wants and desires does not have to be identified as to what those wants and desires are. They are constantly evolving. Your attraction to them is super important, because as you focus on them, you attract them to you. And then I think the key is allowing them in. If I trust that this good thing that I've wanted and called forth is brought into my experience, that I will succeed or I will thrive from it. So let's see, Pisces, because this may be a challenge for you, because you rule the 12th house, you've got your ruler and your ancient ruler coming together, really asking you, what do you believe about yourself? As Jupiter is creeping closer and closer to Neptune, and it's entered its domicile of Pisces, there's an expansion of this idea of either the erosion, if you're sitting in a challenging place, or of the opportunity to live your life from a more spiritual and intentional place. Pisces, our first angel is Archangel Gabriel. The second is Bridget. The third is Isabella. And the final is Opal. I love the word discernment. It's a great word. All right. Pisces, Archangel Gabriel is being joined by the Trust card. Bridget is being joined by the Fire Fairy. Isabella is being joined by the Partnership card. And Opal is being joined by the Burden card. Okay, so one of the inherent things about the Seven of Pentacles is contemplation. Which direction do I go? And sometimes inadvertently, when we contemplate a direction, we contemplate the losses of whichever direction we move. What are the things I need to worry about? Here's Archangel Gabriel asking you to give up your insecurities, and there's the Trust card. Now, again, we see the 47. The 47 reduces down to an 11. The 11 reduces down to the master number of thought for me, and the 11th house of innovation, electricity, and focused thought, Uranus, turning things upside down so that you can turn them right side up. And I think for my Pisces, it's important for you to dig deep and look deep as to, are you trying to push forth inspirations? Are you inadvertently, the 12th house by nature is a house that is it's isolating. You're by yourself. It's the bedroom. It's where I sleep and dream. It's where I do my research. It's where I spend time alone. And, we talk about meditation, but we can also feel isolated in this endeavor. And I feel as if with this particular combination during your contemplation, now we go into, am I thinking from an inspired place, or am I going into worry? Am I inadvertently thinking, well, if I harvest these too early, I won't make enough money from them, or whatever the case may be? Because in the angel's advice, yes, the timing is right for this new venture. And there's the Partnership card. And I believe that Partnership card is about the idea that you're aligning to a bigger vision of what you want to experience. When we take the spiritual aspects of the 12th house, we are rewriting ancestral patterns in many ways. We've identified them, we've reflected on them, and now we are allowed to have a new version of things. Because In this moment, I think what's going on for Pisces, because you're the most defenseless of all the signs, you're having a hard time, Burden card and and Opal, believing that the universe is supporting you. And if we think about the idea, Neptune's been going through your house for a long time, but making this square to Mars may make you feel as if you're not taking the right actions, or your actions are not aligned to what other people think. There's a weird choppy feeling of fear in between the decision. Fear of, I'm afraid to let them sit and I'm afraid to cut them. I'm afraid to harvest and I'm afraid if I let them grow too long, they'll rot on the vine. And now this is a place of alignment with your thoughts. So I really want to go back to this idea of this mantra. I align to, I attract, and I allow for my greatest and most beautiful life to be experienced in the physical earth. Because I think you're having a little bit of a hard time feeling supported by the universe, feeling as if, what's it all about? And let me offer it this way, because the human by nature is just afraid of change. We call it forth constantly. We want this to change. We want that to change. And yet when something changes, there is a weird ripple effect to that. So as we start to think that every change that happens is working for my benefit, the term divine disruption has become really powerful for me, because, as I've looked, like recently, one of the sockets went out, electricity, Uranus doing its little thing in my apartment. And as a result of that, now the management company wants to go through and look at all the sockets. And I have been concerned because there's been sparks coming out of some of the sockets. Divine disruption is leading to balance. That's the point I'm going to. And that's where I'd like you guys to seek that. Sometimes the burden is that we can't see things from Spirit's point of view. We don't know how what appears to be, not this again, turns out to be something really great. So as you're starting to assess things, start to really implement the idea that everything's working out for me. It's always working out for me, even if it appears not to be working out for me. Okay, let's go on to our Aries. Your ruling planet is going retrograde. And, it's my ruling planet too. And I really, I've thought a lot about it. And I love the hero aspect of Aries. I love the idea that I'd rather be a little bit more piss and vinegar than to be pushed around by other people. Now, throughout my life, people have said pivotal things to me. Do I want to be right? Do I want to be happy? And of course, I would always say both. And so what I realized is it's really about how you present something. It's how you say it versus what you say, and what you infer through your tone. So let's see what Aries. Here you go. Competition. Here you go. This is not fighting. It's interesting. It looks like a mock competition in some ways. None of these, if you look at the guy in the blue tunic, he's only holding the wand with one hand. There's a feeling of, I need to step back and look at things twice. That's what I want to say for Aries, because when you first walk into a situation, you may see one thing, but if you settle in for a second, you'll see something a little bit different. And I think what I have thought about as an Aries rising, and Gemini being my third house, is how do I communicate myself with others? And this is not about me worrying too much about the other person's opinion about it. It's more about myself, because there's a little element to Mars that when you're putting up a healthy boundary, it may seem like you're pushing on somebody. So learning to communicate in a way that's palatable to others and authentic to yourself is what I think this Mercury, or this Gemini, Mars retrograde through Gemini, is offering us. All right. Our first angel Aries is Crystal. The second is Daniel. The third is Archangel Uriel. And the final is Aurora. The very first thing any astrologer says about Aries is the war, the god, the god of war. True. Not saying it's not true, but does it always have to be the first card I play? This is rewriting Aries. Crystal is being joined by the risk card. Daniel's being joined by the hawk. Archangel Uriel's being joined by the eagle. And Aurora's being joined by the trust card. Okay, so here I am, an Aries rising. I spoke earlier about how Mars co-rules Scorpio. We've got the nodes at 13 degrees. They're hanging out at that Aryan degree for quite some time, and they are really holding us karmically to review how we behave. Are we reacting, or are we choosing our actions? Because Crystal says, have faith and hope. There's more on the horizon. Here's the risk card. And I think what the Five of Wands is offering me is an opportunity not to go into a situation and react, or to give myself an opportunity to step back and really perceive what's going on before I start talking about it. Because initially you look at this, you think these guys are fighting. They're not fighting. So here, the risk is allowing something to unfold without you taking action immediately. Because here's the hawk talking about rising above the situation, and there's Daniel talking about your history in relationships. This could be for Aries, we talk about our siblings, our workmates, our teammates. Gemini has a lot to do with other people. It's when the soul goes through the third house for the first time, it's experiencing itself in relation to other people and how they perceive me. Because I think Spirit is working with Aries to learn how to use your anger and frustration as a tool rather than a weapon, to stand in integrity and still be authentic to what you feel is out of balance without villainizing the other person. And that's why I think there's an opportunity to step forward, because if you're going through this retrograde, and let's say you have challenges with your family or your siblings, you may react on a historic pattern. You always do that. And it may not necessarily be true right now, because Aurora says you're flying high right now. Don't descend into your anger and your frustration and your habitual way of being. The trust card is not about trusting anybody else. It's about trusting yourself. And I want to offer this, trusting the evolved version of yourself, to no longer allow yourself to be villainized by those key words. What I would really like to hear from the astrologers is Mars is the hero. And Mars is the one who goes into battle with you and is willing to allow themselves to stand beside you in unison, using its prowess as the competitor, as the gladiator, to stand for balance versus just destruction. And I think that's what's being offered to you. So as you walk through this, and your ruling planet is going to spend months through the holidays with your family and your people. And are you going to view them in the same way you always do and react? Or are you going to say, you know what, if you are the same old way, I'm not. I got a different way of perceiving things. Been thinking about things a little bit different. So I'm going to show up to make me happy. And if it makes you happy, that's a cherry on the sundae. That's where I'm going with that. I've had to deal with the idea of being called hostile for years. I mean, my sister just loves to say that. My sister used to call me a drunk all the time. And I'm not a drunk. I don't even drink that much anymore. Occasionally I do. But my point is what I ended up noticing is that as I defined myself to myself, I did see myself out of balance in certain environments. So when I drank around my sister, I would have a different reaction, not only to drinking, but to other elements going on. And as I defined myself to myself, these old habits no longer had a grip on me. That's where I'm going. All right, Taurus. We have the Page of Wands. This is inspired thought, the beginning of new thought. I always see this guy with this mercurial hat on his head. And that little red feather makes me feel like there's some sort of inspired thought, some sort of passionate thought coming. Now, we're going into an eclipse. We're going to an eclipse that's focused on Taurus, a full moon, the illumination of something. And, when I first look at this, I think, I wonder if it isn't a timing issue, as if maybe you've been wanting to move a story forward, having that north node making you feel ravenous to get on with it. And then it's like, no, I need a minute, because the universe is putting other components into place to make this even more solid than you would imagine. So let's see what we're looking at here for Taurus, rising, moon, sun, and stelliums. Our first angel is Rochelle. The second is Francesca. The third is Patience. And the final is Azure. You're so good at remembering. I don't remember anything. Literally, this will zap out of my brain before we even end the broadcast. I don't think it's ever in my brain. Okay, Rochelle is being joined by the Perception card. Francesca is being joined by the Novice. Patience is being joined by the Mystery card. And Azure is being joined by the Grail Knight. The Page of Wands can very much represent passion and energetic passion, meaning literally like fire. Fire rule the fire signs. The wands rule fire signs. We're talking Sagittarius, we're talking Leo, we're talking Aries. There is a sense of romance and passion and sexual energy attached to all of that. And what I want to say for my Tauruses is that I don't think this is about the act of sex as much as I think it's the act of feeling viable. You know, when we fall in love, we feel like this new sense of energy on the planet. Everything looks better. Everything seems a little bit easier. And I feel like right now, Taurus is a fixed sign. You've got the North Node, you've got Uranus transiting, and now we're going into this lunar eclipse with the moon just, exasperating our feelings, right? Whoosh, here it is, this opposition that's going to take place. It's on the 8th. It's 3 days into the next week. So we're going to start feeling this energy building up. And I think, Taurus, this is an opportunity for you to really see, is my perception aligned to my heart's desire? Am I trusting my heart over my mind? Because Taurus's need for security, Taurus's connection to their family history and the role they've played in it and how they've been assigned something can inadvertently put you in a stuck energy. And I think this is an opportunity to illuminate and remove that, because Francesca is talking about thinking and focusing on what hasn't worked, what's negative, what has blocked you. And there's the new beginning in the form of the Novice. In Placidus, my moon is in the first house in Taurus. I very much identify with who I am emotionally. I very much identify with my family history, good or bad. I very much identify with the idea of my emotional IQ and how it's received out into the world. And sometimes I can inadvertently appear very, very stubborn. And that's when I started to have to decide whether I wanted to be right or I wanted to be happy, because it really wasn't about whether I was right or not. It was about presentation. It was about perception and how I allowed myself to express that, because patience is giving Taurus an opportunity to really observe how you show up in the world. And this is not about trying to abolish or to squash any sort of negativity, but being more aware of how often do I sit in inspired energy versus an old story that doesn't really serve me. Because Azure is saying your desired outcome will happen in the near future. Have patience and faith and don't try to force it. And then we see the Grail Knight. I don't usually pick up on this one, but I'm going to focus on it today. Illusion. There's romance, seeking the sacred, and illusion. And I think there will be an illusion that is broken up. And that illusion is anything that's less than, anything that has been restricting you, anything that has kept you from liberating your heart, your mind, your physical experience from its liberation from what has been into what you're birthing through your intention moving forward. And I think that is about trusting your heart. Again, when we go into the heart, we're talking the intuition. I've been going through with the South Node transiting my Scorpio. And when I go back 19 years and I look at what I experienced 19 years ago, there's a part of me that gets very scared. And I have to remember that was then and not now. And I have evolved in my awareness, and I'm not the same. I'm not declaring the same things. I'm not focusing on the same things. And so I've really turned this Scorpio South Node transit into how willing am I to be powerful and to assert my control, meaning my focus, my thoughts into trusting a bigger picture and to come from my heart, because that's Taurus. That's what I want you to do. That's what I think this access is about. It's wanting to take what is considered mystical and put it into the real world so that you realize your thoughts are things. And now I've aligned my thoughts, and any illusion was that I was not a powerful co-creator, or that I am actually been tanking myself. This is not about blame. It's not about saying, oh, I've thought negatively and now I've destroyed my life. It's about contrast. Before I was really, really worried. And did worry serve me, or did it put my focus in an energy that wasn't aligned to me? So that's why I've been going into my personal affirmations. I align, I attract, I allow for. So this is what I think is going on. I think that this eclipse coming up is going to bring an illumination that feels like an aha moment, rather than the closing of something that makes me feel sad or feel less than or feel loss. All right, let's go on to our Geminis. This transit has been going through your house for the longest time, and will continue to do so. Our tarot card is the Two of Swords. Now, this is very interesting because this is the swords are always air. Gemini is air. We see a 2 here. Gemini is 2, the twins. And we see precarious balance. And what do we have to do? We have to close our eyes. We have to trust with a bigger picture. The moon there is interesting to me because it's a crescent moon. So some things feel hidden and some things feel illuminated. So I think for Gemini, this is about, in some respects, paying attention to the loop in your mind. And by paying attention to it, there spawns the question, is this appropriate? Is this applicable now? Or am I now coming into a place where if I close my eyes and I feel something with my heart, I allow myself to be illuminated? One of the wonderful things about Gemini is it's a persuasive energy. It talks in ways that makes everybody want to kind of join the party of whatever it's talking about. So I feel as if when you start to engage your thoughts and enroll yourself into the higher vibrations of what you want to experience, and it isn't through what your eyes can see or what your eyes can contemplate, but deeper into your heart. Let's look and see what Spirit has to say for you. Because I think this transit is more, it could be more about, there could be the potential that there's challenges with, your neighborhood, your people, I think we're going to see a lot of kind of cuckoo for Cocoa Puff stuff going on outside of ourselves. But within ourselves, as we align our thoughts to the idea that we are protected, we are here to represent balance. So there is a certain amount of insulation from the nonsense. All right. Gemini, our first angel is Vanessa, faith or fear. The second is Archangel Uriel, frustration and anger. The third is Astera, reaching for the stars. And the final is Isaiah, new beginnings with protection as you begin them. I think I've told you guys lots of times before that when I started working for myself, it all started because I got mad at this girl that I used to work with. She pissed me off like for the last time. I just couldn't take it another second. And while I didn't get into an argument with her directly, I certainly got an argument with myself about what I was willing to put up with. And, I say prayers for that girl, because if she hadn't pissed me off that day, I wouldn't be the Teri I am today. So again, looking once or twice at divine disruption and whether it's really working for you to disrupt the things you won't disrupt, or whether it's trying to pull you under, which most of the time it's not. Vanessa is being joined by the B card. Archangel Uriel is being joined by the protection card. Astera is being joined by the deer. And Isaiah is being joined by the death card. I really think that for my Geminis, there's a whole new world starting for you. And I think this is I think the Mars retrograde, the Mars transit in the sign of thought, in the sign of speaking, reading, teaching, how I absorb myself, the media, Twitter, TikTok would fall under the Gemini, our roadways, our escalators. I was even thinking the other day, do you know that I'll bet you Gemini rules our shopping carts? that we roll through the markets, there are these subtleties to what these signs represent that we don't really give life to. So I kind of think that as Gemini starts to really ponder, am I making my decisions based on faith or fear? Am I letting myself get so caught up in what my everyday obligations are that fear is starting to rule me? Because there's the B card. And the B card is an awareness of my belief, my disposition, my attitude as I move forward. Because I think you're being protected from your own anger and frustration. And the protection card is a 38, which reduces down to an 11. And I believe that this is an opportunity for you to start to view any disruptive energies in your life as an opportunity to look and see deeper. Maybe this disruption is bringing me a new experience. When my blinds broke, I was so annoyed. I spent 2 months having to wake up every morning before sunrise and cover my furniture so the sun wouldn't bleach it or discolor it. Yes, was it annoying? But on the back side of it, there was an upgrade. There was watching me walk through disruption without creating more disruption for myself. Because Astera is asking you to reach for the stars and desires. And this is a fear card for me, but it's also about being gentle and having diplomacy with your own thoughts, with your own sense of anger and frustration. I had a friend once who said to me, anger is a motivator. And at first I thought, oh no, anger's a bad. Anger's always bad. And then as I got older, I started to realize she was right. Sometimes we get so frustrated with the situation that if we didn't have that frustration, we wouldn't be propelled to move forward. We would always contemplate the pitfalls. And the anger makes us hop, skip, and jump over the pitfalls to get out of it. And that's what happened to me. When I got angry with that girl that I worked with, when my frustration level with her and her attitude up to here, it propelled me to bet on myself. So here's an opportunity for there to be a new beginning. We see 2 new beginnings. Number 1, Isaiah offering you new beginning, Gemini, and knowing that you're being protected. And here's the phoenix rising from the ashes. And it happens because you're aware of the journey of your being energy. You're aware that my feelings about things, when I'm sitting alone by myself in my bedroom, in my living room, in the bathroom, and I'm fretting about somebody or I'm angry at somebody, I'm creating an energetic momentum. And all of a sudden I start to think, is that anger working for me? Is that frustration in the situation propelling me to make a new choice? Maybe it is. Maybe it's a good thing in this case, because that's what Mars is going to do. And it's going to do it for a while. You're going to feel a lull, then it's going to spike, and it's going to kind of go like this. And through this whole process, I think it's important for Gemini to be able to sit and be very fair with yourself as you walk through these different feelings of hot and cold and giving up your power and then asserting your power and how that plays out. Because by the time we get to January, I think you may show up for yourself in a very different way than you originally had anticipated. All right, let's go on to our Cancers, rising, moon, sun, and stelliums. I will tell you, I'm tired of my own personal pity party, to be honest with you. I'm tired of shaking in my boots a little bit. I'm tired of knowing something in my mind and not feeling it in my heart. And so I've been saying to Spirit, help me connect with the truth. I don't know if I ever showed you guys this, but it's pretty worn and torn. It's 9 years old now. But when I first started working for myself, I printed, don't look at my manicure, please. I really need a manicure. I've had financial fun and manicures had to be on the back burner. Okay, so here is an aerial shot of the last scene of Field of Dreams, the movie, where all the cars are coming to the baseball field. And they've pulled it up. And here, instead of the baseball field, I put my face. I used to use this all the time. You could tell I would put it underneath my stone and I would hold it like this while I was meditating. Because when I couldn't, in my mind's eye, hold space for that, that people would find me, I used this as the representation. I'm just so pleased and so honored to have this because it feels good. And I've gone back to the basics. And when I look at this, I say to Spirit, Please bring all the people who will best be served by my gifts and my talents. And this has helped me realign myself, because in all the changes of this last year, things have gotten muddied. And I started to look and see how many subscribers I had and how many people are watching and who's benefiting and who's not. And I started to get caught up, and that's a very ego place to be. We don't need to be there. So Cancer, this is all about teamwork. This is all about starting to think of things in a new way. This is the card of not necessarily the apprentice, but in many ways a master, because these people have come with their contract to assign this gentleman something to create. There's definitely, this is Mars in Capricorn. That's what this card rules. So there is the potential that you're bringing something, taking action and bringing something into the material world that you have been working on, that you have been, I hate to use that term, because working on, I always feel like I'm going uphill. But when we get into a journey of awareness of our own being energy and how it contributes to our experience, this may be exactly what's going on for Cancer, is starting to create a contract with God and your angels, and starting to really master all the things that you have put together, and starting to put them in the material world. That could be Pluto's opposition to you this whole time as well, is pushing you outside of yourself, in the sense of, if you're not taking care of you, are you really taking care of other people? All right, Cancer ruling the 4th house, the very lowest point in the chart. Serena, the angel of abundance, right here. This is about money. Celeste, a new job, new home. Ray and Vanessa. I think Cancer, this is going to be very, I feel like I'm getting a more, and I use the word mundane, because I feel like we're talking about your everyday experience. You could very well need a new job or need some money. 3 of Pentacles is going to be about money. Serena is about abundance. Celeste is about a new home or a new place of employment. Let's see. Serena is being joined by the transformational swan. Celeste is being joined by the joy card. Ray is being joined by the ego. Oh, this is lovely. And Vanessa is being joined by the wind fairy. All right. Cancer rules intuition. It rules emotion. It rules the heart in many ways. And I say that not astrologically, but I say that from the idea of ruling the mother love, home, family, patriotism, there's just so many things. I just got chills everywhere, because as I see this is coming into contract with your guides and your angels, and starting to give life to this, a bigger picture of what you know intuitively from that water place inside you, because your job is to be serene and allow for the transformation that has been going on for years. There's been an inner knowing. There's certain habits you have. There's certain ways of thinking that you've had. And rather than judge them and criticize them for holding you back, it's time to be more serene and more just to see it as a part of the journey, because I do think that this is about abundance and feeling safe and bringing more resources into your life, because Celeste not only represents a change in your viewpoint, in the way of thinking. I believe that there is an opportunity to bring I want to say a place of employment, but I don't know if I think of it as employment as much as a way to bring in income and resources that's more aligned to what you enjoy and what you love and what is viable for you. Because the challenge that you've been experiencing on some level is because Cancer is the crab, it goes sideways. So there's this little bit of it wanting to kind of avoid sometimes, or gets insecure. And this is where you've been edging God out. And right now, your job is to connect. Your power comes through your connection to spirit. And that connection is all about faith and then giving your mind a rest. And I want to offer it this way, because the mind does not rest easily. It's imprinted. It's a machine. It's like your heart. It just keeps going and going and going and going and going and going and going. And so as you can identify that thought, you can say, Spirit, help me to feel more serene in this moment. I have a habit of worry. I have a habit of focusing in on what is not working or where there is lack. If you think about it, a mother isn't just about nurturing. She's also a protector. And when we're protecting other people, are we really protecting them when the focus is outside? Or do we protect them even better when the focus is inside? So as we trust that my thoughts are things and I align my thoughts to a greater experience than what I can see right now, that is the most nurturing you can do for those around you, your friends, your family, your children, anyone you interact with. So as I've been going through, I mean, I literally can tell you exactly when I got triggered. I got triggered when they raised my rent in June, and I got the notice in June. I started to feel my momentum, my wobble, and I've observed myself not completely going backwards, not completely going forwards, and then I've surrendered to the journey because Spirit said to me, Teri, you appear very confident to people. You appear like you know everything and you can just implement it, and that's it. It's not true. The things I say are literally Spirit's message. I'm not always good at them in my human body, making them happen. So Spirit kind of said, when you have a dip and then you persevere through that dip, or you continue to believe when there's no evidence in the outside world, you help others believe. So I want to offer this for my Cancers. I think that as you trust a bigger picture of things, as you trust that the job will come in, that it'll be perfectly aligned to what you want, that you will start to experience things from a place of very powerful co-creation, which will nurture others in a way that you couldn't have nurtured them before. And it's through your faith over what your mind tells you you should believe. All right, let's go on to our Leos, rising, moon, sun, and stelliums. All right. Our angel is Justice. Leo, look at that. Scales of justice, fairness, the court system, Libra, cooperation. Let's see where we're going. It is going to be all right. And I want to offer it this way, because even that sentence, there's a little vibration that it's not all right. So I really kind of feel like everything is working out for me. I really like the idea of I align, I attract, and I allow, because it feels general enough that I can wrap my head around it without an underbelly of fear or lack. All right, Leo, let's see. Where's this justice? I mean, some of you could be literally in a legal suit, but let's see. Could also be karmic justice, where you've worked for something for so long that now it's about to come into balance. Let's see. Bethany, the card of self-care, Azure, Crystal, and Grace and Antoinette. So let's think about this for a minute. Saturn just started to go direct again, a little while ago in Aquarius, making an opposition to a lot of you because it's only at 18 degrees. And that 18 degrees, it's been holding for quite some time. That's the Virgo degree. So that could be, in some respects, in the more challenging dynamic, because 18 degrees is a little challenging. There could be a sense of criticism. I should have moved my story forward. Things should have moved quicker. Let's see. Bethany's being joined by the Earth Fairy. Azure's being joined by the Joy card. Crystal's being joined by the Hawk. And Grace and Antoinette is being joined by the Burden card. Okay. All right. So if we think about Saturn rules, government, authority, restriction, depression, limitation, obligation. If it's been making an opposition to you, then somewhere there has been a feeling of no movement, a feeling of frustration attached to no movement, because now I see it's time to take care of you. And let's go back to Leo. Let's go back to the basics. Maybe it's time to have fun. I want to offer it this way, because if indeed you're in a holding pattern of some kind, and retrogrades are always a holding pattern of some kind. So if Mars is creating no movement for you and the opposition of Saturn is creating restriction of some kind, then surrender to it, because your justice will come. And I want to offer it this way, because I've got a lot of Pluto squares right now, and for a long time, I just gave into the Venusian aspect. Brian Coulter said, Teri, do things that you find fun. I'm a crafty person. I love to do diamond art. I love to knit. I love to color. And so I started to, I couldn't feel inspiration to move the videos. I was feeling super stymied. And I wanted to, I kept feeling like I need to move. When I allowed myself permission not to move and then started to realign to inspiration, things started to get to feel fun again. Because I think that if you're not doing something based on fun, Azure says your desired outcome, Leo, will happen in the near future. There's the joy card. This is about taking care of you. So if you cannot move something forward with a legal case, with something outside of yourself, something that feels structured, authoritative, something that might be Saturnian because you've got that opposition, then relax. Go have fun, go to the beach, watch TV, do a crossword puzzle, take a nap. Crystal says, have faith and hope. There's more on the horizon, and the signs and the omens that things are going to work out are coming. And you won't see them if you're so engaged in the lack of movement, because there could be a lack of movement. Grace and Antoinette is requiring compassion, and there's a bit of a burden. So let's look at it this way. There's the potential that this new, I shouldn't say new, full moon, Taurus, lunar eclipse could bring the culmination of a cycle. There's Taurus right there, the earth fairy. And your job is to take care of you in the meantime, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and allow in some respects for the universe to bring in a sense of justice that you could not implement yourself. You could not make happen without other dynamics coming into play. And I think those will be illuminated through the full moon or within 6 months of this full moon eclipse. So do your best to have compassion for the journey of awareness and your alignment during it. Because as the, you rule the zodiac, you rule leadership, you rule the sun shining. And as you believe that that sun will shine again, it'll help you to hold space for the in-between time, because there's some sort of in-between time. Maybe you're waiting for an answer. All right, let's go on to our Virgos, rising, moon, sun, and stelliums. And we have the Magician for our Virgos. This is as above, so below. This is the Magician is when the Fool meets the very first energy in the physical. My thoughts are things. I have all the elements I need. I have my pentacles, I have my sword, I have my cup, I have my wands. I have plenty of abundance all around me. And now what I get to realize in the physical is as I align my thoughts, I create my experience. So let's see. Mercury's in Scorpio right now. This could very well be asking you to dig deeper into deeper beliefs that you have about yourself, about where you're required or feel a certain amount of duty to a process, a situation, a dynamic. This could be an opportunity to take Mercury, your ruling planet, and to provide to implement for yourself a process of manifestation, awareness of my thoughts or things. Archangel Uriel is the first angel. The second is Archangel Raphael. The third is Celeste. And the final is Layla. All right. Archangel Uriel is being joined by the High Priestess. Archangel Raphael is being joined by the Protection card. Celeste is being joined by the Spider. And Layla is being joined by the Wind Fairy. Virgo, whatever you are walking through right now, whether it be a physical situation, a mental situation, an emotional situation, a spiritual situation, your focused thought on the challenge, on the problem, on the frustration of it is your co-creation. And I'm not asking you to ignore that frustration. I'm just asking you to ask yourself if it is serving you to change the situation. Because the High Priestess and Archangel Uriel are asking you to take a spiritual viewpoint of your stance, of your anger, your frustration. You may be justified. It may be, you may be being taken advantage of, but is it serving you to focus on it? Because we have Archangel Raphael in the protection card. The protection card is a 38, which always reduces down to an 11, which always gives me an opportunity to liberate my thoughts. And it's through an epiphany. And here we see Celeste representing a shift in the way I'm thinking. And interestingly enough, for my Virgos, this may be a shift in some of the places where you're spending your time, the people you're spending your time with. One of the things I found that as I became more aware that if I kvetch about my problems, if I talk about, oh, I don't have this, I don't have that, I'm so upset about this, I'm so upset about that, I'm not serving myself. And when I became more aware of that, some of the people in my life that aren't aware of that started to disappear. They started to go away because when I didn't give into those ideas anymore, we didn't have anything in common. So let's talk about the end of the week. We've got the South Node and the Sun exact in Scorpio at 13 degrees. So I really think this is an opportunity to be brave about what am I putting out into the universe? And am I telling a new story? Because here in the final position, we have Layla that's asking us to really, what am I putting into the universe? What am I talking to God and the angels about? Because Layla wants you to talk about what you want, about what it feels like when you're there. Because the wind fairy is getting in your way. It's too much analytical thought. And it's creating frustration. And now we need to go into a place that doesn't make sense. It would feel like the musings of a child. It could, in some ways, people could say it's a Neptunian fantasy. All right. But you put enough energy into fantasy and you'll create it into your real world. It may not look exactly, you're not going to have unicorns popping out of anywhere, but you could have a reasonable facsimile thereof. So I think that there's an opportunity for Virgo to, without judgment and criticism, that's one of the challenges of Virgo, is it can be very, self-critical and expecting more, superhuman things out of yourself. And that's not fair. So I think this is an opportunity for you to know that as you have this epiphany, that on some level, your focused thought may be creating your experience or co-creating it or pulling you in that direction. See how this never works for me. See how this doesn't da-da-da. I think I used to tell you guys there's this restaurant up the street. And before I gave up eggs, I would run after the Sunday broadcast and go have brunch. And I would walk over there going, they're going to screw up my eggs. They're going to screw up my eggs. They're not going to make them right. And sure enough, 9 times out of 10, they didn't make them right. And, I could always blame the chef back there, but everybody else seemed to be happy at the bar eating whatever they were eating. Their food came out right. So I started to think, I got a button on this restaurant and I'm participating in the idea that my eggs aren't good. And then COVID hit. I never went back to the restaurant again. All right, let's go on to our final sign, Libra, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. Yeah, there's definitely patterns. They're all being brought up right now. And the deeper layers of those patterns are being brought up. And it really is for our benefit, not for our demise, not for someone to criticize us. I think oftentimes that humans think that they get to the pearly gates and somebody's sitting there with this, long scroll of all of our indiscretions in the human body. Not true. What actually happens is there are loving beings that meet you. And then they ask you, how do you feel about what you did in this lifetime? The only judge, the only jury is sitting right here. So as we start to practice not judgment, but discernment, do I like that? No, I don't think I like that. I'm going to go over here. Then we start to really bring into the physical what is the truth of our real nature. All right, Libra, here we go. 8 of Pentacles, detail. This is where we've amassed a certain amount of money, physical security and prowess. And now we're really going back and fine tuning things. We're going back and we're looking at things from a little bit of a different, more, I want to make things more clear. I want more clarity. That's what detail gives us. And recently I talked to Tebow a little bit about, and I've mentioned to the crowd about maybe not doing Sundays. And that thought was really an ego thought. And as I, listened to people give me their opinions, I realized that I was off. I was starting to look at Sundays as, are they being effective to other people? It's not about that. It's about just giving the information. You guys get to decide if it's effective. I don't base whether or not I do this on that. So I decided I am going to show up every Sunday and just let my ego step aside, because it hadn't been stepping aside. It'd been sitting right here, wanting to be an influencer. And what I decided is I don't want to be an influencer anymore. If you're influenced, great. If it serves you, great. And if it doesn't, throw it out. Throw it out. Don't listen. All right, Libra, here we go. Libra, rising, moon, sun, and stelliums. I said I was doing a session for a gal who was a Libra like me. And I said to her, do you ever think that, Libra represents balance? And if balance, and you can't really represent balance if you don't have things that need to be balanced, dark and light, right and wrong, opposites. All right, Libra, our first angel is Layla. The second is Shanti. The third is Opal. And the final is Oceana. Mandar, if you'd like to book a personal session, I'm available. My information is below. Reach out to me and we can look into your love life and your life partner. All right, Libra. Joining Layla is the love card. Joining Shanti is the trust card. Joining Opal is the birth and the rebirth card. And joining Oceana is the communications card. I think this is really fabulous because there it is. We're talking about the detail of what I'm putting out into the physical world. And as a Libra who just celebrated her solar return, I had an epiphany. I just told you, you know what? I don't want to do this to influence you. I want to do it because it's what my heart calls me to. It's what I feel from my place of joy and love is my way of making this world a better place. And when I start to worry about whether or not you think I'm making the world a better place, I'm not serving me or balance. So Layla is asking Libra to really start to what Layla represents is setting intentions. Layla represents focused thought and then engaging the universe, engaging spirit, engaging source energy to align me and those ideas. And this is about love. And you know what? Love is interruptive sometimes. Love says no to imbalance. Love says it's okay to teeter. Pardon me. Because here is Shanti, the angel of peace, and there's the trust card. Here is Opal and the birth and the rebirth card. And one of the challenges that we might see as Mars goes retrograde in the sign of school-aged children is we could see a lot of the world get much more angry. We could see more assaults on children, more children perpetrating assaults. We could see a lot of challenging dynamics in the way people are thinking, arguing, and all of these things. Libra, I think you're being tasked to look deeper into the divine disruption of what this has to offer. That maybe if we don't go through this sort of demolition of the old rules, how will we implement new rules? Because the peace does not come from everything being all harps and unicorns, flowers and rainbows. Peace comes from a choice. And the choice in some ways is to see that we are all being protected and we are going through an opportunity for a rebirth, to go from this caterpillar that only sees this very small way to create a sustenance. That caterpillar just crawls on that twig and eats the leaves. But when the caterpillar transforms into the butterfly, it not only flies on the airwaves, which gives it greater sight, it drinks nectar. The leaves no more. So here, Libra, this is an opportunity for you to swim up through your emotional body to see a wisdom bigger, to see the seesaw of balance. And the balance is not about holding a line like this. It's about being flexible and fluid during this motion, because the communications card represents our thoughts. It represents our things. It represents our everyday activities. So as we see some of this disruption, it's going to create balance. And it may not have done it yet, because change sometimes comes slowly, but Saturn is working on that right now. And as Saturn starts to go back through Aquarius and making that square, and we have all these other aspects. I mean, my goodness, almost every single one of them is taking everything we've known, throwing it up in the air, and asking us how we're going to rewrite it. And that's not an easy experience, but it's a liberating experience. It's an empowering experience, and it's our job to align to that power. And the power comes from us looking at only the details of our life and not getting too caught up in the big picture of what we have no power over. The only thing we really have power over is our perception and our thoughts. And our thoughts, we don't even have complete power because part of it's imprinted. So, yes, how can I use my anger and my frustration to motivate me to align more succinctly to what I want to experience? And as you do that and you see yourself benefit from it, what you'll see is others say, how did you do that? And you'll say, you know what? I aligned more succinctly to what was authentic to me and my truth. And I stopped worrying about what other people were going to think about that. So, T-Bo, I'd like to think November was going to be restful and slow, but you're going to have an intention for that, because the stars are aligned for some interesting challenges that will not so much challenge us in the material world, although that's highly possible because there are some things going on that Venus is and money is on the docket, but how we're perceiving things. I really do believe that if we're perceiving things in a way that's like, I'm going to be smart, I don't take my dog out at night right now because like weird things are happening. As it's gotten darker, twice I've seen two people look at me in a way that creeped me out. Like I went to get my mail one evening. It was about 8:00. It was pitch dark and a vagrant was going by, and he stared at me for a little bit long. And then he turned and started to walk towards me. I didn't like the way that felt and went into my apartment and shut the door. The other day, I was walking my dog in the middle of the daylight. There was another vagrant walking. He looked at me, and he looked at me a little bit too long. And then he kept going, and then he backed up, and he looked at me again. And in that moment, I said, thank you, God and the angels, for protecting me and putting a bubble around me so that he's not interested in me or anything I'm doing. And then I felt safe. It's very important to be aware, because people, for the most part, will not be. Okay, that's it for this week. By the time next week rolls around, we'll be in daylight savings time, at least here in the United States. We will be sitting a few days away from this final eclipse. The energies are ramping up, guys. They really are. So breathe, and remember, you're a lighthouse. You're not the storm. You're the lighthouse. All right, everybody. Peace out. Like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Hit the notification button, and I'll see you next week.